Network's Morning with Maria. That'd be Maria Bartiromo. And she got Rudy on, Mr. Mayor. And she said, Mr. Mayor, how have things changed since 9/11, 2001?
I don't remember anybody taking a knee back in 2001, ever. I don't remember people burning flags. I don't remember people saying hateful things about America.
It's an example, folks, of how quickly the left has taken over, how quickly, just a few years ago, that you would have players in the National Football League protesting the American flag and the national anthem on the anniversary of 9/11. It's an example, folks, of how quickly the left has taken over, how quickly they have politicized so many institutions.
Good evening, Bruce.
And in the process, they're ruining everything.
Absolutely.
They're not making anything better. They're not improving anything. They are not adding to the class, the dignity, the quality of anything. They are literally destroying what they corrupt and politicize.
Everybody's watching you.
Oh, hey.
And they don't even, many of these people can't even remember what was happening 19 years ago. They weren't even born, or they were too young. Listen to Rudy Giuliani. This is this morning
clip.
On the Fox Business Network's Morning with Maria. That'd be Maria Bartiromo.
Ooh, Bartiromo.
And she got Rudy on, Mr. Mayor. And she said, Mr. Mayor, how have things changed since 9/11, 2001?
I don't remember anybody taking a knee back in 2001, ever. I don't remember people burning flags. I don't remember people saying hateful things about America, how horrible we are, how horrible our founders are. We've got a whole movement, hate America movement going on that we come up against today. We even have two different ceremonies because the other group is not reading the names. They're playing a recording. It's a pre-recorded. To me, that's disgraceful. Pre-recorded reading of the names? Come on. Stephen Stiller ran in. He was at home sleeping. He ran in to save people. Now his children have grown up without a father. We have to remember it, too, because it's not over. This isn't Pearl Harbor. It isn't Appomattox. These people still want to come here and kill us. And we're defunding the police department that protects the #1 Islamic terrorist target in the world, New York City.
Exactly right. It's not over. Now, there's Rudy, 19 years ago. Don't remember anybody taking a knee in 2001. But I think, folks, it is a very powerful way to keep things in perspective and to remember that just 19 years ago, this entire country was celebrating policemen and policewomen, the first responders, the firemen. And by the way, from here on, when I say policemen, I mean all genders, and firemen, all genders.
It's a good memory.
Serve as much time as I can here. You know who I'm talking about. We were in awe of them. The great courage, the sacrifice that they made. They're not among the highest paid people in our country, folks. They're not even close to being the highest paid. Now they are routinely targeted. They're said to be legitimate targets for violence under bogus false charges that their industry policing targets a certain segment of the population for murder. And we have a bunch of college-aged white Americans who've bought this, who believe this. So in less than 20 years, we have gone from total admiration, total respect. By the way, at rushlimbaugh.com and at the Stand Up for Betsy Ross operation and everything to do with this program, we still hold the police in awe. We still have the utmost respect and admiration for the courage and the work and the sacrifice of law enforcement, including the United States military. We have not wavered. We have not succumbed to any of this conventional wisdom, public peer pressure to join in the condemnation of these people. Last night, the fans in Kansas City for the opener between the Chiefs and the Texans booed. And everybody there said they didn't understand why. J.J. Watt defensive end for the Texans. He didn't understand why people were booing. I can't believe he doesn't understand why people were booing. All we were doing, he said, was a message of unity. No, that's not. I can't believe you guys don't get. But maybe I need to readjust my thinking. Maybe I need to acknowledge that they may not get it. They may not know why all this is good, depending on their sources for news. Depending on how and who and what it is that informs them on a daily basis. We'll have more on that as the program unfolds. Look at this here, folks. The Atlantic magazine editor.
Oh, this
what was this guy's name? Jeffrey Goldberg. Yeah. Sternly,
did you hear this?
Atlantic editor admits story about Trump disparaging fallen soldiers could be wrong.
Oh, how about that? They even admit it.
It's in the Political Insider, but the editor is admitting it. He confessed, Jeffrey Goldberg confessed, the central claim in his magazine's hit piece could very well be false. This is after he said, hey, our reporting has only just begun. I'm telling you, there isn't a shred of this about Trump that's true, James. None of it is. And falling prey to it, falling for it is very dangerous. In fact, I'm going to have an entire monologue on this coming up. I can squeeze it in. I've got so much I want to squeeze in here today. I mean, it is just... Could have told you, I did tell you, the first chance I had to get behind this microphone after I came back to tell you that this story of Trump and the soldiers dead and buried in cemeteries being jokers and losers, I told you it was bogus. 4 anonymous sources. Everybody who was there admitted Trump never said it, and this guy's doubling down. It's like every other allegation. Folks, every allegation that has been made against Donald Trump the last 4 years has been a lie. There hasn't been a shred of evidence for any of it, and there hadn't been a shred of truth. And I mentioned yesterday, what must it be like to work at CNN? Every day you get up and you have a new lie. You have a new charge. You have a new allegation every day or every week, as though there was nothing the day before. But there is every day, every week, there's a new one. And whatever happened yesterday, the day before is conveniently forgotten.
That's why I'm just letting it go. I could just repeat it. We might as well hear it from him.
Because their objective has been to get rid of Trump. They have wanted Trump removed from office, however, whenever, ASAP, and they have failed. Now their objective is to have him defeated in the election coming up in November. And so their efforts continue, but their record, and the New York Times and PMSNBC, their record is failure after failure after failure. What must it be like to work there? And what kind of talent does it take? What kind of training does it take to get excited over a lie every week? Because they know this stuff is bogus. They know what they're reporting is not true. There hasn't been a single one of these allegations, from colluding with Russia to this Ukraine stuff, the impeachment, all that. None of it, not a shred of it has been true. And yet they get up and they dutifully report the new allegations, whatever it is, the Woodward book, whatever's going to be next. They report as though it is the essence of truth, and none of it is. And they act like nothing happened the day before. That is a very important part of this. Because, folks, my contention is, like I said yesterday, American people are near their absorption level on this. You can't do this for 4 years and have not a single one of them pay off. Trump had better be. You realize the question people are now asking? This Trump guy, look at everything he's gotten away with. They haven't been able to catch him. Look at all the things they know he did, but they can't catch him. That's what people are being forced to reckon with. All these allegations. Is Trump really this brilliant, a criminal mastermind, to be able to get away with all of these things that the media is damn certain he did? Is he really that good? He's really that smart. He's that much smarter than the media. He's smarter than the New York Times. He's smarter than the Department of Justice.
But they say he's stupid and a clown.
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
All these people, people are going to start asking, if they're not already, is even one of these allegations true? Because if they are, this guy Trump is the most brilliant criminal mastermind we have ever had in our country. Not just president, but ever. The American people are not fools and they're not idiots. And after 4 years of this, there are some questions which become rather obvious. It's kind of like the Democrats for a while gave up accusing Republicans of wanting to cut Social Security from senior citizens. You know why? Because the cuts never happened.
So I think he's a good starter because let me plug in my mic. All right. Hopefully I come in better, or if I come in worse, please tell me. Because a lot of us, or a lot of people, were very young when 9/11 happened. And there's all these little tidbits that somebody like Rush remembers. And that's true. It jogs my memory. Firefighters and the police, they were gods. They were risking their lives. Hundreds of them died, running in to bring people out alive, hopefully. And then after they were dead, they were bringing out pieces of people, going through the rubble. And when you're running it, you're a firefighter. Your job is a firefighter or police officer. And you run into a burning building that's falling down on top of everything. Everyone looks like ash. There's no race and no ethnicity because everyone was covered in ashes. Their lungs were filled with ashes. You have that kind of job, and your job is to risk your own life that you may never see your children again or those that you love. And you go in and you pull out anybody that you can find. It's not, let's just save the white people, or I'm a black police officer, but because I'm really blue and I'm a traitor, I'm just going to save the white people, or the white people of a certain political party. It's not race. This whole thing isn't race anyway. This whole thing is just political ideology. One is communism, and one is upholding the freedoms of America and our civil rights. That's what we're fighting against. That's what we're fighting for. That's what they hate us for. That's why Antifa and BLM was it 3 women? It's mostly white people that are heading these organizations, rather than it's really fighting for the cause of racism or the lives of Black people. And if you're going to do that, you're going to better the lives of Black people. You're going to stop them from shooting each other instead of ignoring the numbers. With a 28 this weekend alone were killed in Chicago. 28. That isn't what they're, or they, to make sure they go to school, or they have fight for better schools, help the parents care about their children's education. Sometimes they're so overwhelmed with poverty and the violence that they live in, that the things that are so important, get your child out of this. Get your child out of this. Get them to a better school, a safe school, a good education, so they can rise up and out of it. And I don't understand why Black Lives Matter, which is really Marxist, it's kind of like, it's a Marxist organization, but they've named it Don't Drown Little Kittens. Oh, nobody agrees with drowning little kittens. Who would agree with that? Nobody would disagree with that, with Black Lives Mattering. Of course not. But the organization is really nothing to do with the title. It's about destroying the country and bringing in Marxism. Otherwise, they would go into every city and as missionaries and help the parents, teach the parents, and tell the parents that they deserve to live. They deserve to have better lives. A lot of these mothers are on drugs because they have no husband. They have no hope for their life, for their future, their own future. And the children, their fathers are in jail. A lot of them grow up like this. So there's no hope. And the little boy says, well, I'm going to end up like my father. And so he has no hope. So at one time, these first responders, which are the police and firefighters, we looked up to. We had charities, funds that we would send money to because they lost their lives trying to save anyone. Those Twin Towers were the World Trade Center. There were people of every race, every ethnicity, every religion in there that when those towers fell. So these first responders, the police and the firefighters, went in to save the lives of people of every race, every religion, every ethnicity. And there was no pick and choose. But then they had to, after it was too late and they were dead, they had to not pick and choose, but pick up the pieces of these bodies, as many as they could find, and try to identify them and reunite them with their families so they can be properly buried. Can you imagine having that experience as a first responder, that you were a hero and you were saving lives? Like my father, when he was in the war, he was a military police, so he wasn't on the front lines. He was extremely poor, and he lived in many foster homes and slept in the basement. That's what they used to do. These foster families used to just fill their basements with these children so they can get as much money as possible. So he learned how to use a gun very young. And so they went out and had to shoot rabbits or something to get food. So he became military police, and once he told us a story, and I suppose there's many stories, but the military police aren't on the front lines shooting the oncoming soldiers or wherever they are. They go out and they pick up the pieces. That's what the military police does. Or if a soldier has done something wrong, or they keep order and they're there for protection, just like the police here. And once there was young Asian boy who died because he tripped and his head fell on the train tracks, and the train went by and smashed his skull. So my father picked him up and carried this young Asian boy. Clearly my father, how could you be, carried his body, because he was told to pick up the body and move it, and the brains fell out of his head. And because they were told, the generals told him that you have to respect the bodies of these people. These are not American soldiers. These are the people of the country that he was fighting in, or he wasn't fighting, but they were fighting in. You have to respect their bodies, and you have to pick them up so they can be properly identified by their families and properly buried. And people don't realize that about the military. And that's what the police do. And they go out and they may never come home, or they go out to a scene of an accident and they see these bodies all smashed, and they're the first ones who come to the door, and they have to, within themselves, after they've seen all this and picked up the bodies, they have to deaden something inside of themselves, because they can't break down. They have to seem very strong to the parents. They have to hold themselves as if they have no feelings, because they have to tell the parents that your child has just, or your husband has just been killed, and the way they've been killed. And in the Army, that's what they do too. They go to the home of the soldier's family, and they bring the folded American flag, and they hand it to the mother, and they tell her what happened. And they have to be strong. They have to hold their emotions in, because if they break, then everything breaks. Because these are the people that are there to put our country back together, to hold our country as one. Because our leaders cannot break. If they break, then what do we have to look to? We look to them as if they are our parents when we're children and we get hurt. And we don't understand why we're hurt or why someone hurt us. And our parents pick us up and hold us and rock us. And they're strong for us. And that's what our police, and that is what the military does for us. And we forget this. And now they're destroying the police and defunding them. And this, can you imagine? The police have a very high rate of suicide because of what they deal with, because some of them can't hold this in. The military, they're committing 22 suicides a day because they can't hold this in. It's too much. Or they come back and they're looked down upon because they've been in the military and they've committed some grave sin, but they were only following orders and they were trying to do what was right, or they were trying to protect our country. What have you got to say, Rob? You're sitting there.
I could not follow that up. You said everything beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But it's I'm thinking about this, and I was thinking about my father and all these people who are in the military, the ones who come back and they resume a normal life. You go through wars like Vietnam, and it was horrendous. And some people come back broken, and then some people come back and they resume and they become generals and they go up, and they have to stay strong because they have to say, we must protect the country. We must be there to protect those who can't protect, or who can't, because some people need help. Some people need someone to be strong. It depends on what your life experiences have. Some people's life experience is different than others. And those who can bear this have to be strong for those who have had a very difficult life and can't pick themselves up. But we have to admire people who are strong, like Trump. He is strong, and he does break every time a body comes home. The soldier that's been killed, flag draped coffin, his son says that he does, but he can't show it. And can you imagine if he broke in front of us? What they would say about him? Go ahead, Rob.
No, I mean, yeah, they would mock him, honestly.
Yeah, they would say, "We told you so. He's weak. He's fake. He's phony. He's a bully." Because bullies are bullies on the outside, but they're very weak on the inside, which is an interesting thought, because everybody who's burning down our cities, they're bullies. Yeah. They say bullies really are weak on the inside. And there was on Twitter today, there was a picture of the young gentleman who was rioting and looting and burning down the cities, and he was about to shoot that young man who came to give free emergency aid to these rioters. And he raised his arm up and he went to shoot this young man who was giving them aid in the head, which doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like Tom Wheeler, the mayor of Portland, who goes into in protests with them, and then they spray him with pepper spray, and then he cheers on the rioters, and then they go into the mayor's office and they sit down and said, you have to give up, we want to take over. And then they go into he gets on TV and he blames Trump for everything. He's the one who's causing this. And then he goes home to his condo. He's got 3 other houses, one by the ocean. He's really rich. And then they go and they go to burn down his condo. These are very weak people. These are weak bullies.
Yeah.
And these are the people that you want to lead us. After you destroy, they're not going to lead us. They're going to be bullies. They're going to be bullies to all of us, no matter what side you're fighting on, no matter how many lawn signs you have, or how many T-shirts that say hate has no home here, or Black Lives Matter, or no matter what it says, they will be bullies to you.
Yeah.
And people do not realize that these are going to be your leaders. And doesn't matter what you've screamed, or how many buildings you've burned down, or how much looting you've done, or what color your skin is, because we know that David Dorn was a retired police chief that went out every night and left his wife's bedside to go and see if the store that he was a security guard for in his retirement years was all right. He heard about the riots and he went on alone, which surprises me as a police chief to know that these rioters are out there, lots of them, and they're violent and they're burning down buildings and they're beating people up and they're killing people. Why did he go alone is what I don't understand. And so it doesn't matter. He was Black. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. He's on the other side. He's as long as you're on the other side, if you're a Republican, if you're a Trump supporter, doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, you've stripped yourself of your minority status.
And they will give every racial slur to a person.
Yes, and what they call them, house blanks, house blanks, or Uncle Toms. They call them these horrible names. And there was one NFL player that wanted to put David Dorn's name on his uniform. And they looked at the list and said that his name is not on the list of approved victims. Isn't that horrid? Isn't that a horrid thing to say? All the man did was try to protect people, save lives. He was a good, good man. And if you want somebody to be your leader, I would like him to be my leader. I wouldn't want these people who are beating people up to be our leaders. You know, it makes me wonder, this should be another stream though, about that young man who went out to give aid and comfort to the rioters.
And social media is censoring,
Yeah. You cannot describe any, but we know who we're talking about here. But I'm wondering, why did he do that? Because so they can lift themselves up and go on to give them help. And it's interesting. They say he's a Trump supporter, but I'm wondering if that might not be the case. If the gun was brought just in case someone else came and tried to stop him from giving aid to the people who are destroying the cities. People, no one out there has said this yet.
Well, yeah, the first aid kit.
You know, wondering which I'm wondering what side he was really on. Yeah. It is because would you go do that? Would you go to help these people to continue and riot? He might have been on the same, but you see, it doesn't matter to them what side you're on.
Yeah.
they're going to kill you. They want to, even if you're helping them, they're going to kill you. Anyone who goes to their side out of fear, it's possible out of fear, so they don't come after him, which they did. Out of fear, you are putting your life on the line. Most likely you're going to be hurt and you could be killed, most likely. It's not a side to even pretend that you're on. There's only one side to be on, because you will die on the other side. They will kill you, or just like Mao, just like Hitler did to all his people that are like the Antifa, BLM people that are out there rioting. They get killed. They kill them off. So my little doggy out there is barking.
I can hear it.
Come in. So why don't you take over the stream? Hello there, Amy Joyce. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming on.
Hello, everyone. Jeff Tube here says, hi all, if you are willing, could use some prayer cover. Just came down with COVID and I'm feeling pretty terrible. So yes, we will pray for you for having the Rona. And we can hear Felina baby talking, her dog. Yeah, you can have the name of a rapist on your football helmet. But you cannot have David Dorn's name on your football helmet. That's cool. I don't have the ability just to talk to the camera like Felina does. But yeah, I saw the entirety of the Dallas Cowboys were kneeling, and as if the ratings bloodbath wasn't enough, America's football team is all basically protesting the flag. So it's just a complete downward spiral, and they're not learning a lesson, or someone's padding their pockets. Or there's some sort of institutional pressure coming down on them from up above.
Hello, Jeff Tube. I am going to guess that your last name is not your real last name. But thank you for coming on. Is family downstairs and keeping their distance. So nobody's popping into the studio yet. But did you hear Trump's speech today?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No. I saw the color guard ceremony, but it was just like a 2-minute video that came up on Facebook.
Huh. There he is. He's looking good.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David, very much. Great honor to be with you. 19 years ago on this day, at this very hour on this field, 40 brave men and women triumphed over terror and gave their lives in defense of our nation. Their names and their stories are forever inscribed on the eternal roll call of American heroes. Today we pay tribute to their sacrifice, and we mourn deeply for the nearly 3,000 precious and beautiful souls who were taken from us on September 11th, 2001. To the family members of Flight 93, today every heartbeat in America is wedded to yours. Your pain and anguish is the shared grief of our whole nation. To memory of your treasured loved ones will inspire America for all time to come. The heroes of Flight 93 are an everlasting reminder that no matter the danger, no matter the threat, no matter the odds, America will always rise up, stand tall, and fight back. To every 9/11 member all across this nation, the First Lady and I come to this hallowed ground, deeply aware that we cannot fill the void in your heart or erase the terrible sorrow of this day. The agony renewed, the nightmare relived, the wounds reopened, the last treasured words played over and over again in your minds. But while we cannot erase your pain, we can help to shoulder your burden. We promise that unwavering love that you so want and need, support, devotion, and the very special devotion of all Americans. On that September morning when America was under attack, the battle turned in the skies above this field. Soon after taking off from Newark, New Jersey, radical Islamic terrorists seized control of United 93. Other hijacked planes struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center, and then the South Tower, and then the Pentagon. The terrorists on Flight 93 had a fourth target in mind. It was called our nation's capital. They were just 20 minutes away from reaching their sinister objective. The only thing that stood between the enemy and a deadly strike at the heart of American democracy was the courage and resolve of 40 men and women, the amazing passengers and crew of Flight 93. Donald and Jean Peterson were grandparents traveling to vacation in California. Diora Bodley was a student headed back to college. Richard Wardagdo was returning from celebrating his grandmother's 100th birthday. Lauren Katosi Grancolis was 3 months pregnant with her first child. Every passenger and crew member on the plane had a life filled with love and joy, friends and family, radiant hopes, and limitless dreams. When the plane was hijacked, they called their families and learned that America was also under attack. Then they faced the most fateful moment of their lives. Through the heartache and the tears, they prayed to God. They placed their last calls home. They whispered the immortal words, "I love you." Today those words ring out across these sacred grounds, and they shine down on us from heaven above. When terrorists raced to destroy the seat of our democracy, the 40 of Flight 93 did the most American of things. They took a vote, and then they acted. Together they charged the cockpit. They confronted the pure evil, and in their last act on this earth, they saved our capital. In this Pennsylvania field, the 40 intrepid souls of Flight 93 died as true heroes. Their momentous deeds will outlive us all. In the days and weeks after 9/11, citizens of all faiths, background, colors, and creeds came together, prayed together, mourned together, and rebuilt together. The song "God Bless America" became a rallying cry for the nation. We were united by our conviction that America was the world's most exceptional country, blessed with the most incredible heroes, and that this was a land worth defending with our very last breath. It was a unity based on love for our families, care for our neighbors, loyalty to our fellow citizens, pride in our great flag, gratitude for our police and first responders, faith in God, and a refusal to bend our will to the depraved forces of violence, intimidation, oppression, and evil. In New York, Arlington, and Shanksville, people raced into the suffocating smoke and rubble. At Ground Zero, the world witnessed the miracle of American courage and sacrifice. As ash rained down, police officers, first responders, and firefighters ran into the fires of hell. On that day, more than 400 first responders gave their lives, including 23 New York City police officers, 37 Port Authority workers, and 343 New York City firefighters. Today, we honor their extraordinary sacrifice and every first responder who keeps America safe. With us today is David D'Amato, a retired Chicago police officer and a current officer of the Navy Reserves. On 9/11, he drove from Chicago to Ground Zero. As David says, while the sights and smells of working at Ground Zero will forever be etched in my mind, what is more profound is the way this country came together afterwards. The police officers and firemen were revered as the heroes they truly are. The military was appreciated in a manner not seen in decades, and common people found new meaning in values like friendship, kindness, and selflessness. Thank you, David. Such beautiful words, and thank you to every member of law enforcement who risks their lives to ensure our safety and uphold our peace. This morning, we also remember the 183 people who were killed in the attack on the Pentagon and the remarkable service members who crawled straight through the raging blaze to rescue their comrades. We express our undying loyalty to the nearly 6 million young men and women who have enlisted in the United States Armed Forces since September 11th, 2001. More than 7,000 military heroes have laid down their lives since 9/11 to preserve our freedom. No words can express the summit of their glory or the infinite depth of our gratitude. But we will strive every single day to repay our immeasurable debt and prove worthy of their supreme sacrifice. America will never relent in pursuing terrorists that threaten our people. Less than 1 year ago, American warriors took out the savage killer and leader of ISIS, al-Baghdadi. Soon after, our warriors ended the brutal reign of the Iranian butcher who murdered thousands of American service members. The world's top terrorist, Qasem Soleimani, is dead. Here in Shanksville, this community locked arms and hearts in the wake of tragedy. With us today is Chuck Wagner, a heavy equipment operator who lives just a few miles away. Very soon after the attack, Chuck helped search for the black box. He was so changed by what he experienced that he joined with several members of his church to become what they call ambassadors for the 40 men and women on Flight 93. Chuck and his neighbors learned about each person, cared for their families, and each day, rain or shine, they took shift standing vigil over their final resting place. Long before this place was a national memorial, back when it was marked by a simple wooden cross, Chuck and his fellow ambassadors were always here waiting to tell visitors about those we lost. 19 years later, Chuck says his life is devoted to three things: his family, his church, and preserving the memory of the men and women of Flight 93. to Chuck, his wife Jane, thank you very much. Thank you very much. To Chuck and his wife Jane, thank you so much for being here. And to the over 40 ambassadors with us today, please stand and receive America's thanks. And this is a very deep thanks, please. Thank you very much. Also with us is Marine veteran Jason Thomas from Long Island. On September 11th, Jason had just retired from the Marines, but he immediately put back on his uniform and raced into the nightmare of ash and debris. At Ground Zero, he found a fellow Marine, Dave Carnes. Together they began to call out, United States Marines, United States Marines. If you can hear us yell, tap, do whatever you can do with the United States Marines. Soon they heard a shout for help. 2 police officers were trapped beneath 20 feet of rubble. Jason and Dave dug for hours on end, knowing that at any moment the wreckage could come down on them, crushing them alive. At one point, someone told Jason to stop. Jason replied, I'm a Marine. I don't go back, I go forward. That day, Jason helped save the lives of those 2 officers. For years, Jason said nothing about what he did on 9/11. He did not even tell his 5 children. But when he saw a rescue recounted on TV, he decided to meet those officers. One of them gave him a gift, a steel cross made from a beam that Jason helped lift to free them from the hell on earth. As Jason said about the cross, it means a lot. It's a symbol of what we are as Americans, because that day we all came together and stood as a nation, as Americans. It didn't matter what race you were, what religion you were. It didn't matter. We all came together to help one another. I die for this country. I die for this country. Jason, thank you very much for bearing witness to the character of our nation. Jason, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jason. The men and women of Flight 93 were mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, husbands and wives. Nothing could have prepared them for the dreadful events of that morning. But when the moment came, when history called, they did not hesitate. They did not waver. 40 towering patriots rose up, took charge, made their stand, turned the tide, and changed the course of history forever. Our sacred task, our righteous duty, and our solemn pledge is to carry forward the noble legacy of the brave souls who gave their lives for us 19 years ago. In their memory, we resolve to stand united as one American nation, to defend our freedoms, to uphold our values, to love our neighbors, to cherish our country, to care for our communities, to honor our heroes, and to never, ever forget. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the heroes of Flight 93. God bless all of the families. 9/11, we'll never forget. God bless you all, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
That's the first time I did hear that today. That's the first time I heard it. So some of the things he said, I had just said. And oh, here's the lights. I had to move the light because I was searching on the internet for a name of a pilot who belonged to, whose aunt belonged to our church that died. I believe it was Flight 93. But yeah, that's interesting that he has said, we're all thinking the same thing, that it doesn't matter what race or religion or ethnicity, who you were, you just went in there. And there's those the officers that went in to save other people who were overcome by the buildings falling in on them. It's an important thing to hear, and it's an important thing to remember. And we've got this is Trump's presentation, and it's beautiful. And then
Yes.
Senator Harris or Biden, do you think, well, Senator Harris, she becomes president soon after they're inaugurated. Do you think there'll even be a memorial 9/11? Well, she'll tell us who the true victims of 9/11 are. They're not these people, but they're these people. And we will have that. We will have it shoved down our throats instead of saying, look, I want to mourn for everyone that died. I'm not going to pick and choose, especially for those that ran in to save people's lives and died trying to save people's lives. And many of them were officers. So I have a couple stories of some people that I knew that died on or were affected by 9/11 greatly. David M. Charlebois, Pentagon Memorial Fund, National 9/11 Pentagon Memorial, Washington, D.C., was the first officer on American Airlines flight from Franston, Arlington, Virginia, and he resided in Washington, D.C. at the time of his death. He was, I know of his personal life. He was gay and he had just got married. And Teresa is the name of his aunt, and she's died since. And she had his picture up, and she told us all about him. You hear stories about these people and how they were good people. They were very good people, and he was very generous to Teresa. She's an elderly woman, but she was kind of like the queen of the church. Everybody had to talk to Teresa, and she was very, very, very funny. She was really, really funny. At the same time, so everybody wanted to stop and talk to her. She's also a BS others too. She would BS me a lot, and I'd say, "Oh no, I'm sorry. I thought she was joking. Oh my God!" And she would just play it to the end. But there was a girl I went to school with, and she became. I know her father, and her father always stops and talks to me. He was a postal carrier, and he stops me and says, "Oh, this is the town's most famous redhead," and he told me about his daughter Jennifer, and she was a flight attendant, and she was a very sweet little girl, very petite, but really sweet and kind, really kind. Some people are just good, and some of us have to work at it. But she was just good, and she was raised awfully well. Well, that morning of 9/11, she couldn't make the flight. She was sick. She couldn't make it. So she called another attendant to take her place. Well, we know what happened. And poor Jennifer. She was married. She's never been the same since. She's always been kicking herself and just beating herself up for not getting on that flight. for asking someone else to take her place. She should have died. She should have died. So this perfectly wonderful human being was raised with just really good parents, really nice people, is destroyed. She's destroyed. She has never recovered. So there's lives, people who lived, who weren't even on the flight, people who mourned over their loved ones, and people like Jennifer who mourned because she will kill herself for the rest of her life for not being the one that died, for feeling responsible for the girl that died in her place. And we don't think of these people, do we? You know, when we don't think of the officers, we forget officers and firefighters. We forget the people who ran in there to save other people's lives, and the building fell in on them. These people were torn to pieces. Some people jumped out of the building. The building was Towering Inferno. It's an old movie from the 70s called I never saw it, but I know the title, The Towering Inferno. And they jumped out of the windows. And then there was that beam that fell down, or they carried, and it looked like a cross. And then then the time came when the SJWs were getting all mad and saying, we must stop calling it a cross. We must stop identifying this with crucifixion. But you know, many Jews died. Many Jews were crucified. It wasn't just Jesus who was also a Jew. The idea that these people were crucified, weren't they? You know, it's can't we look at it at that, at least, that the crucifixion is a horrific death? Can't we look at that symbol and say to ourselves, yes, I may or may not be Christian, but that was a crucifixion?
I think it was the Freedom from Religion Foundation specifically that had a problem with the Iron Cross being.
Well, they're usually populated by SJW. So do you have any memories or stories yourself, Rob?
No, I mean, I actually did not see it on TV. I only knew when I woke up and I saw my mother and she said the Twin Towers are gone. And I was like, what? I didn't know what that meant. And it wasn't until I watched it on TV, and it was just on constant replay for the remainder of the day. And after a while, it was always too big to process initially. But after a while, it really took its emotional toll on me. But ironically, the first time I actually cried was much later. They had a documentary on HBO about journalists and how far they've fallen since. But journalists covering 9/11, theirs was a kind of different story, because when everyone else was running away from the towers when they collapsed, they were running towards the towers. And so you kind of got their, you kind of got the 9/11 experience by proxy by listening to these journalists and their experiences running into or towards the towers. So yeah, that was actually the first time I actually cried about September 11th, and that was much later.
I went up when I was a little girl. I went up to the top of those towers and looked out. And there's this, is it Chicago? And that has the duplicate of it that we saw on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So if you have an idea of what those towers, how high they are, and what it looks like to look out of the top window of those towers. I remember the Christmas before, the year before, so that would be 2010, no, 2000. it would be Christmas of 2000. And the towers fell September 11th. I was in New York City, and I spent Christmas there. And on my way out, I was sitting in the back seat, of course, and I was looking out the back window. And the car passed the towers, and I looked up at the towers, and I got frightened. And I said to myself, those towers are too tall. They're going to fall. I could feel it. It was, and there has been, I've heard other people speak, of course, on Coast to Coast. Coast to Coast people say that they had premonitions of this, but it was strange because that morning I was sleeping, and when you have a dream right before you wake up, and then they say if you don't open your eyes immediately, the dream downloads into your conscious. The reason why we forget is our dreams is because we wake up too quickly, but if we keep our eyes closed, they say it down, and that's why sometimes we remember a dream and sometimes we forget a dream. But I was sleeping, and I was dreaming I was in an airplane that was circling the Twin Towers, and that's the dream that I had. And when I woke up, we got a phone call saying, turn on the TV. A plane has just hit the towers. And then you saw the other plane hit the towers. And I go, oh my God, I was just dreaming of this.
Yeah.
It was so imminent. And I think if you have, they say children, they're children of, when you're a child of abuse, when you're a child of great trauma, what happens is that your feelers go out. Like someone who's constantly being abused, your feelers go out emotionally. Your sensitivity extends. There's no break because you have to know when the next attack happens. So they say, they've done a study saying that children of abuse usually grow up to have psychic abilities. And it's for these reasons. Is because of this sensitivity, and that you always are on guard for the next attack. I was thinking of another same thing with a dream that I had. Remember when I'll tell you the dream. It's a very interesting dream, and it the way it played out, I go, this is way too perfect. I mean, after and then my mother told me something awful had happened. I was dreaming that I saw Jackie Kennedy, and she was dressed as Jackie Kennedy, not Jackie Onassis, with a pillbox hat.
Yeah, the pink jacket. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she was opening a door, and it was if I was in the room, the dark room itself, and she was opening up the door to a dark room, and she was all in the light, and she took 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy, little children with her to heaven. And I woke up and my mother said something horrible happened. And she told me that John F. Kennedy Jr. and his wife and her sister, the plane went down into the ocean. And I went out to my backyard and sat on the swings, and I put my hands like this. And I was praying, saying, if wherever they are, I wanted them to be safe. I wanted to, if I could send them healing. But then I looked in between my hands. I couldn't close them, and I could feel the waves of the ocean between my hands. And I could feel, I knew where they were. They were in the ocean. Mm. And I met this woman who was this healer. She had this healing shop, and she says, oh, I help people cross over to the other side all the time, and I can't find them anywhere, so I think they're still alive. And I said to her, no, they're in the ocean, and they hadn't found them yet. And and then later on I saw the show about the Kennedys and Jackie Kennedy, and she was with the Secret Service, and she was with her children, her son and daughter at the time. She just had a son and daughter. And she said to the Secret Service, and they're going to go swimming in the ocean, she said to them, if any of them are drowning, either one of them is in trouble, I am the one that's going to go out to save them. Don't you do a thing. And then I go, oh my God. And then I realized my dream. It's exactly what she did. They were in the ocean and she went to take them home. I couldn't believe it, you know. And the strange thing is that, and then you hear that she didn't like gossipers, she didn't like fake psychics, she didn't like people who were. She married Onassis because she went out and she wanted to get away from America because they're killing Kennedys. Bobby was killed and he was taking care of her. And I thought to myself, and I go, what an honor. I go, you know, there's many psychics out there. People claim that they're psychics and they work for magazines and they're famous and they would probably get on TV or the radio or something that says, I am this, blah, 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 and they make their money. Yeah. And I said, she showed me something that she knew that I was going to make money on. I was going to become famous because it was in a way that was an honor. Knowing the way then finding out later the way she was, learning more about her and them as children, of course, I wouldn't know, that I realized what an honor it was. Mm-hmm. And how odd that is. You know, I think it just, sensitivity, extra sensitivity, more things, extrasensory perception, they call it, but I think it's like heightened sensitivity. And this event was so, I think some events are so huge that a lot of people feel it coming. Like we sense that some kind of disaster is going to happen before it happens. A lot of us, no matter what our life experience is, and we don't know why we sense it, but it's in the air, it's coming. And at the moment, I know there are many other events that I could say a lot of people felt this or sensed this. And there's a lot of things that have happened that I've sensed, and I know other people have sensed. And I'm thinking to myself now, why does God give us this type of gift? Why do we have this? Is there something that we could do when we feel something bad coming? When we feel that there is something bad coming, like when I felt, you know, I was leaving New York City, and there was months before that event happened, many months. Was it, I guess 9 months before it happened, over 9 months before it happened? Is it when we sense these things, maybe the first thing I felt was fear. And maybe that's not the first thing we should feel, because fear blocks things off. Fear blocks good things from happening. You know, it makes us petrified and unable to act, unable to do the right thing. We feel very scared and we feel very sad. We feel helpless. And maybe when we sense something bad coming, the first thing we should do is to let go of fear immediately. Say that it doesn't mean it will happen. And maybe it's our ability to say, wait a second. I think we have to look at ourselves and maybe become stronger people, better people, more loving people. It's a cry, it's a battle cry from heaven saying, please be kind to your neighbor. Please be nice. Just be kind, be loving, be nice. Be a little bit more generous. Because maybe we can avert disaster. Or if disaster comes, we'll say, I'm so glad that I met that person or I knew that person. And they were in my life for a moment, for a little while. And then you can look back and say, the life that they did have was good. The people around them were good. They weren't afraid. They weren't angry. They didn't hate each other. They didn't find fault We weren't finding fault, all these faults that we're finding now with each other. If we could do that when we feel fear or we have a sense of impending doom, maybe a lot of these things wouldn't happen. But we would still say we've left the world a better place, or we've made the world a better place. And if all of us lose our fear and pick up strength, like the police officer or the soldier, or the president that has to pick up the mantle of strength and be strong and not show weakness, and be kind and be the one that says, I'm going to go in and help. I'm going to help, and I'm not going to be concerned about my life. I'm going to go in and save them. If we pick up that mantle of strength, and more of us do that, and then there are more people out there to save us when we're in harm's way, or to ease our pain, because more of us are stronger, and more of us are peacefully assured in the light of God, in the consciousness and the knowing that God has given you, that something impending is happening that could be very bad. So God has given you this light. So when He gives you this light, don't shrink in fear. Do not be afraid. I'm with you always. We have to remember that. And that's God telling us, because God says, God sits in the seat of peace and of love and of strength. And He's telling us, I'm with you always. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Yes.
And
that phrase, I think, occurs like 15 times in the Bible. Yes.
Yes. And it also appears in the Vedas. The Lord Krishna said it too. Be not afraid, for I'm with you always. Well, those who hear God, it just say, only those of a certain religion can hear God. I think those who do God's will can hear God clearer. What is my will? When I was weak, when I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was sick, you comforted me. When I was in prison, you visited me. Lord, when did we do these things for you? He who does these things to the least of mine, He does it to me. Those who do the will of God, those are the ones that hear God's voice the clearest. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world or what religion you grew up in. You're listening. You've got the telephone number. You've got the right number, to hear God's voice clearly. I think that's to come away from all of this, to come away from Fear is the Mind Killer, Dune by Frank Herbert. Very good Navy mom. But to come away from this, we have to come away from this stronger than we were. Those who remembered it, those who remembered stories of it, those who did not live through it must remember all these stories. That way, and that America came together. I remember everyone was just, it was like the heart, it was like America was one human being, or even the world chimed in, because the World Trade Center employed people from all over the world. The world came together, and it was like humanity was one human being, and it was the heart of humanity that was hit. And every time you met your fellow traveler on this earth, this American or whoever they were, it didn't matter what race they were, it didn't matter, nothing mattered. We were more sensitive to each other. Mm-hmm. Because the pain, we could feel the hearts that had been bruised and pierced and beaten. We could feel that every time we got near our neighbor, another human being, we could feel that, and we were kinder and we were more generous. And we knew that we had to come together to be stronger, to be strong together as a people, as one people, as humanity. I remember that. I remember that. And we seemed to remember that for a long time afterwards. And then somewhere we forgot it. Somehow America had to be fundamentally transformed, and we had to get rid of the police because we needed a better funded and better trained as the US military. And I said, wait, why is he saying that? We have the police.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That's when the change came. And then we forgot 9/11. 9/11 was, don't remember it, otherwise you're being a racist or an Islamophobe. No, it's not being an Islamophobe. Or is some people did some things? Some people did some things. There were some people that did some things for a reason, but we must remember why they did it. And it doesn't mean that all Muslims did it. You don't belittle it. And it doesn't mean you say it that way. So it's just some people did some things. Well, any people that do bad things to other people, we must be sensitive to, and we must put a stop to. Anybody who's going to do something like this. And right now we have domestic terrorism, and we can't say that they're Islamic extremists. They are, most of them born in this country, or practically all of them born in this country, that have not lived through the wars. Like, isn't that the wars? Well, let's see. Yes, the Bushes did put on some wars, didn't they? And then Obama escalated the wars. And there were wars before that who didn't remember why we fought World War II, why we went to fight the Nazis and the Japanese Empire that was making war on the world and wanted to take over the world. Both of them wanted to take over the world. And America went in, and it was America. If it wasn't for America, and we're the ones who liberated Auschwitz, and we stormed the shore in Normandy on D-Day, and there's a story by this actor. He became an actor. I think he was in the movie Cocoon, Dunn or Dernst, I forget. But he would tell on Memorial Day the story about when he was on the beaches of D-Day, and there was this young man next to him who had been hit. And he looked on the side of him, and all his guts were on the side of him. And he looked at it and said, he was still alive, and said, I don't know how they're going to put all that back in me. I don't know. We stormed those beaches. And there's a story of the Holocaust survivor that they thought it was hopeless because they were killing thousands of Jews a day. And they say there's a glass cabinet that has thousands of wigs in it, because what they did was they removed their hair so the Germans could use it as wigs.
Yeah.
And so they thought it was hopeless. They didn't know if they were going to live or die. And then they saw a soldier coming, and they couldn't tell if it was German or who it was. And then they saw the American flag, and they cheered. And they said to all the Jews that were held at Auschwitz, it's the Americans. It's the Americans. That we are destroying this country. We are destroying this country. And those men went over to save everyone. Doesn't matter what your race or your religion was. They went over and they just died. And they just died in such horrific ways we could never imagine. And the people in 9/11 died in horrific ways. And then the first responders, the police and the firefighters ran in. And because they were doing their job is to go in and to save the victims. Bring them out alive if you can. And you forget about your own life. You forget that you even exist at all. The only thing that's in your head is your mission. And then when it's too late, you run in and you pick up the pieces of these bodies so you can have them, the DNA extracted, and then send that in a box back to their families so they can bury it. It's the last act that you can do for that family. And these are the people that are, none of these people that ran in to save those lives, and none of those men that stormed the beaches, none of the likes of these are on the streets.
Yeah.
Rioting and destroying this country. And none of them would save our lives. Should they take over, we are all dead.
Yeah.
It's not just America. We are all dead. First, we are prisoners, and then they will kill us for sport. And they will pick us apart like vultures do on a dead body that they find, until they pick all the flesh from our bones, and even our bones they will crush under their feet, and our existence will be nothing. Because why? It isn't even those who are fighting on their, I'm on your side. They hate them too.
Yeah.
You can't be on their side. It's those that are above them. And you say it's these big companies that are funding all of these riots. I told you about the TPP. TPP, yeah. We forget. It was meant to dissolve all the borders of all the countries and bring on globalism with a stroke of a pen. Hillary was for that. Trump was against that. And Trump said, no, we think that it's over with. But it's these big companies, these people who have billions and billions and trillions of dollars that are making all the money now, because all the mom and pop stores are gone.
Yes.
And the big companies who could reach in to any country, anywhere, and put anyone out of business. So they've done that. And these companies are funding these riots. And Hollywood, trying to save their lives, their narcissistic lives, are funding and giving money to Kamala Harris to bail them out of jail.
Yeah, literally bailing the rioters out of jail, yes.
And she's the one.
None to black businesses. They're not donating to build businesses that will
or fund the schools. Trump did that. Trump is the one who's giving the jobs and creating the jobs, bringing them back, and gave more money to black colleges and black schools than any president in history. No, they're not doing that. But she's the one who put people in jail for marijuana, that she is so cool and hip that she smokes. She kept them in jail because it was free slave labor. Mm-hmm. And the people who are doing these riots say that, well, we have to destroy the prisons and get rid of the cops because that's the new plantation. The prison is the new slave labor. And so they're about to elect the woman who was keeping black people, because see, at one time she wasn't black. She went up a couple of rungs, big promotions, because she slept with a married man openly, Willie Brown. He gave her a big car. She's mostly Brahmin. She's part Irish, the owner of a 3 slave plantations in Jamaica who beat their black slaves until the flesh came off their bones. And she's a tiny bit black, a little bit of black in her. And she put all these minorities, black people, in prison, took them away from their homes and their families on nothing charges like pot, kept them in jail long past their sentence. And they want to put her in office. And I say, Nancy Pelosi is going to stand up and say, they're going to say, see, what we had to do is we had to nominate Joe Biden because he has dementia, but we had to nominate this very, very white man who can't stop saying racist things, and who sided with segregationalists when he was younger, but they can't help it. They're Democrats. It's the party of racism. We had to nominate this man because you see how white he is and how racist he is. We had to put him up there because all of you are racist. And you would not vote for let alone a woman.
That's what Kamala said when she didn't even get to the primaries. She said, I blame racism. Well, you're blaming the racism of the Democrat Party.
They all blame, but they're going to say, we had to nominate him. Of course, we know he's got dementia. And we know that he says racist things, and he's as white as white can be. Because you are racist. And you would not vote. You didn't vote for Hillary, you wouldn't vote for a woman, and you definitely wouldn't have voted for a colored woman. So we, as the Democrat Party, had to do it this way because you're racist. We had to put her in office because you would never have elected somebody who was a woman or a woman of color. See how great we are? This is what they're going to say. I thought of this a while ago. I'm going, this is what they're doing. Because of all people, the granddaughter of the worst, the biggest, cruelest, wealthiest plantation owner, white, on Jamaica, this one, and she believes in reparations, but no, she doesn't have to pay reparations because she's black. That's what she told them. I'm black. I don't have to pay. You're the one. How much are you going to pay? I'm not the granddaughter of slave owners on either side, my mother or father. How much are you going to pay? You are. And you're this tiny little bit black, and you're Brahmin, and Brahmins won't marry, but they're the top of the caste. And that's Oprah's little book about the caste system. They won't marry anyone below their caste because they're the tops. You're the tops on both sides. They say her mother is a anti-Semite, big time, and they're Marxists, big time. Her family. This is why they put her up there, because the Democrat. I was thinking today that the Democrat Party. You see, when did communism start? Oh, it started sometime in the 1800s, right? But the Democrat Party and their slave owning and with the whole Jim Crow thing and then the KKK. Everything that these communists and dictators did, because Hitler patterned his regime and how to make certain people second-class citizens and an excuse to put them into Auschwitz and kill them. He patterned everything after Jim Crow laws, the Democrat Jim Crow laws, and the KKK, how they went out at night and terrorized anyone who was against the Democrat Party. Same thing the brown shirts did, is they went out at night and terrorized anyone who was who didn't put the Nazi Party first. Yeah. And that's what the Red Guard did, and Stalin's Red Army and the Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge. That's what all these dictators have done. And who did it first? Where did they get this idea? They got it from the Democrats did it first. They did it first. They wanted to see. I would have let them secede from this union if I were Abraham Lincoln, but they had the slaves. They had the black people, and they were going to keep them slaves. And there was no way they were going to be free until nearly 1 million, mostly white people, were blown to bits, or they had to hack off their arms and legs with no Novocaine, with no way to put them asleep. Would these, the tears I saw in his eyes, the one that 17-year-old shot the arm off of, because he was about to kill him. He says tears in his eyes. Oh, would you have fought in the Civil War to free the slaves? And how would you feel if you have Novocaine? They can aid your wound so you don't feel the pain. And they've got all sorts of robotics. They didn't have that then. In fact, many of these men bled to death. And these are the racists that you speak of.
Yeah.
These are the racists.
Yes, America is so racist that they fought a war to free the slaves. A war in which in one battle 20,000 people died.
Yeah, none of these Antifa BLM people who are mostly white, actually, and they're felons that have been let out of prison. None of them, and none of the SJWs, none of these people with these signs, none of these people would fight the Civil War. None of these people who would they say, Trump's an anti-Semite and he's Hitler. None of these people would have freed anyone in Auschwitz. Landing on the shores, and most of them were just blown to bits. You know that the Christian apologist, he came from India. His name was Rabbi Zacharias. Yeah. He died recently.
Yes.
I remember hearing him I used to listen to him years ago. I used to listen to him and the Christian apologist at the same time I was listening to all the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the atheists, Dawkins, Harris, Hitchens, and what was the other one? Daniel Dennett. Yeah. He's the one he's kind of like the Beatles.
He's like
yeah. Oh, George Harrison, that one, the one that nobody thinks of, I was listening to them at the same time as I was balancing the two. I was learning all about physics. I was just saying, okay, if this is true, let's learn all about it. God didn't create anything. Let's learn everything. Let's not be ignorant about on any front. And Rabbi Zacharias, he was an amazing speaker. He really moved you to tears. He told a story about Stalin. And I'm saying this because Antifa, that's their hero. Remember when Antifa came out a few years ago? We first saw them, but they were the black box something.
Black box, yeah.
Yeah, during Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
When they came out, they had the hammer and sickle, and they were praising Stalin and Mao, and people were trying to tell them, look, he killed 30 to 70 million of his own people, and they refused to believe it. And Rabbi Zacharias told the story about him. He went to seminary. He was sent to seminary probably because he was very smart. Usually the smart ones go to seminary. But he didn't become a priest. And they came up to him and said, you torture your own people and you kill millions of your own people. Why is it that they're crying out for you? Why is it that they love you undyingly? They would die for you. How do you elicit this kind of love from people that you torture and kill, that you take their family members from off the street and you send them to the gulag and no one ever sees them again? There's no trial. There's no lawyer. There's no pro bono lawyer. How do you do this? And he was in a restaurant and he said, bring me a chicken. Kitchen had live chickens. Bring me a chicken. He took the chicken, and then he proceeded to pull out, one by one, every feather out of that chicken. Plucked every single feather until the chicken was completely all skin. And the chicken was in pain. The eyes were shocked. So much pain. It could no longer cry out. And he put the chicken down, and everyone expected, after he had done that the chicken would run away in fear. That would be the normal thing, right? Just like an abused child. Mm-hmm. Why is it that you didn't run away? Or abused wife, why didn't you run away? If they were abusive to you, why are you still in that house? Why are you still there? The chicken went in between his legs and cowered for protection. Mm. That's how you do it. You torture them until they realize that you are the all-powerful. You beat them into submission. And that's what all these groups, be it Mao's Red Guard or the Red Army or the Brown Shirts or the Khmer Rouge, that's what they have done in every one of these revolutions.
Yeah.
And that's why a child who's been abused stays with the parents or marries an abusive person because they become comfortable in the abuse. People don't understand this. But that's what happens. And then you're afraid of freedom. And there's bars on the window. If there's no bars on the window and the door is open, why don't you run away? There's bars that you can't see, but that abused person, child or abused wife can see.
Yeah.
And that's the story of Stalin and what he did to that chicken. That's what they're doing to us, the COVID, keeping us locked down. And we were good, very obedient. Though this has never been done before. The Hong Kong flu came and killed over 100,000 people in America, and we still had Woodstock.
Yeah.
Nobody knew this. No, H1N1, that killed 69,000 people. Obama did nothing. He went to the golf course. It did nothing. This has never been done before. And then after months of lockdown, that's it. We get an image that isn't even true. George Floyd's death. He had taken 2 overdoses, methamphetamines and fentanyl, which it attacks your respiratory system and you feel like you can't breathe. That's why he kept saying he couldn't breathe, even though he was sitting up in his car. I can't breathe. Don't shoot me, because he's been told the cops will shoot you because you're black. And the cops are actually trying to help him. We're being beaten into submission. And we can't give in. We can't become like that chicken or that abused child, which ends up marrying someone who's abusive or committing suicide or dying of drugs, or they become prostitutes or something. They die. They don't live long. They live horrible lives. We have to get over this. We have to just wake up out of it and see what's happening. If we know what's happening to us, we can see our way out. And we can stop it from happening. But if we are beaten into submission, we will be like that chicken, in that naked chicken that had been plucked to death, cowering in between the legs of Stalin.
Yeah. Well, what was the objective? What's the objective of terrorists in general? Whether it's the terrorist of September 11th, whether it's Antifa terrorists, BLM terrorists, it's to strike terror in the hearts of men, ultimately to demoralize them And I think that's what you'll find is kind of the common denominator of everyone who pushes this. Why are corporations funding BLM, and the globalists are pushing this? The people pushing pedophilia, pushing abortion, pushing divisive race politics. It's all to demoralize and to make people afraid. And that's why I thought was so powerful in the Donald Trump speech, is that he gave the example of the Marines who ran into the Twin Towers when people were telling them not to do it, and save those policemen. That is a story of heroism. But you never hear a story of heroism, because the stories of heroes make us feel like we too can become heroes. That's not what they want. They want us to be demoralized. And so what we get instead are people like Jacob Blake. And it's Jacob Blake's name who's on NFL helmets, when his great heroic act was being killed by a white police officer. So we can't get heroes, and they don't want us to have heroes, because they want us to feel defeated and demoralized.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that. Hi.
Hi, Robert. How you doing?
Hi. You mentioned something I thought was interesting, because you mentioned like we're not supposed to have heroes. There's a good YouTube channel I follow called Morgoth's Review, and he had an interesting video called An Empire Without Heroes. And in that video, he explains, with all the racial and political divisiveness that's going on right now, in a sense, the American dream has come true, and the left-right divide kind of causes the most Americans to look to no heroes, because, like, say if Trump were to get assassinated, the left would be celebrating. If Obama were to die, the right would be celebrating. So there's that angle too.
They'd be celebrating, I think. I celebrate it. I think that would be a horrible thing. I think America would also get demolished if that happened. But I'm
not talking about like you or I. Yeah, I'm not talking about you or I necessarily, because I would still think it's horrible too. But I'm talking about just the way how partisan it is right now.
But it seems like the people who are on Trump's side really don't. We want peace. We want prosperity. The people who go to those Trump rallies, they're all different races and religions and everything, and sexual orientation. Everyone. He's the first president that held up the LGBTQ flag in his rally. So it says, like, you vote for me, you're voting for everyone. You're voting for everyone. So that's not the way the left sees it, though. Yeah, we just want peace and prosperity for everyone. He wants to bring everyone up. He wants everyone to have the American dream. And it's, the left, you see, dating one of these people, he worked, but, they don't want to work hard. They just want to be famous. And they just cling off of people. Like, he just would have me pay for everything. And then he'd say, I'll pay you back. And then he would say, either I pay for this or I pay you for that other money I owe you. And I go, I don't know the difference. I don't know that I don't know. I just let it go. Because it's like they get you, they beat you in ways, mentally, in ways that you can't get out. These people are, they're weak. They say they think that they're revolutionaries. They think they know how to fight. They don't want to work hard, and they don't want to think, and they don't want to be creative. They don't want to be the innovators of some type of company, or invent something, or are creative in some way. They have no creativity at all. They're not that smart, and they don't want to work hard. They want and they hate anyone with a trust fund, because they just are getting this free money. But
these are the Marxian term, the lumpen proletariat.
Yeah, I know. It's the kind of bourgeoisie end of the proletariat. Yeah, but
or it's the rag masses. It's like the welfare dependents and the criminals and the scum. Basically, the dregs of society.
yeah, or people who are involved in gambling or the bodega owners or something. It's
Yeah.
But they
That's ironically their foot soldiers are the lumpen proletariat.
Yeah. But I mean I think a lot of those New York Antifa that were arrested, I think a lot of them were trust fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they think this Marxist utopia that, oh no, AOC goes, no, we should say no. We don't want to go back to that. Go back. So if nobody goes back to work, who's going to make the gold plates that you eat off of, and who's going to cook your food, and who's going to sew your clothes? Do you care about the people who are making your fancy, expensive clothes, or you've got this designer dog that you paid thousands of dollars for that nobody can afford, that you call deco after decadent?
Yeah.
So nobody works, and everybody, all these marks, because they can't do it on their own,
money for
free. What's that, Robert?
I said no one loves money more than a communist. I've noticed that.
Well, I don't know if you ever seen Ceausescu's palace in Romania.
I know Ceausescu, and I know he was very bad.
Very bad, but also he was extremely wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a Saddam Hussein with like paintings of himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
if you look at even like North Korea, I mean, look at how wealthy that elite lives compared to their people.
Well, yeah. That's the thing with communism is that it makes wealthy those of the political class who don't generate any value, whereas it completely demoralizes the people who do create value.
Well, yeah, look at Lenin. He was a wealthy bourgeois in Russia.
Well, no, communism was always the avocation of the wealthy because and the working class never caught into it.
Yeah, it was the middle class that had emerged during the Industrial Revolution that bought into it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why we're getting identity politics now. It's basically Marxism mapped onto race and gender, because I think the white working class never cottoned to all the LBJ social programs, and they never benefited African Americans living in urban.
That's what the academic Eric Kaufman theorized in an article he wrote for Law and Liberty just recently.
Yeah, well, yeah, I liked half of his thesis. I think the other half was to kind of make sour grapes of that white working class who weren't voting Democrat anymore. So yeah,
because in the Soviet Union, people saw what happened during the Stalinist era and during the Maoist era.
Yeah,
people were determined not to have that.
Yes.
Robert Freed, you have a lovely face. I remember when you let us see your face the last time you were on, and I go, just a warm, kind face. And I enjoyed.
Oh, my hair was messy that day, though.
Looking at your face. So do show it if you feel like it.
Sure, yeah.
It was a treat to see your face.
Now we're seeing your board.
Yeah.
I know.
What do you guys think I look like? Just wondering, what do you guys think I looked like before?
This is your de-individualized form. This is
we don't get to see that often. We're not worthy.
Well, I don't want to get doxxed. Well, the problem is I already am doxxed, but
you're not going to get doxxed here. There's nothing you've said that's wrong.
Right. Hold on, I'll be right back. Oh.
Hey, Rob here. Amy Joy says, think some Antifas are being drugged. Some are just really freaking nuts more than ever. So even even Amy thinks that they're on drugs.
Well, okay,
Now, I say their parents are on drugs. I think it starts with the parents. That's what I think.
My opinion, and this is almost going to sound apologetic, I think what you'll find in Antifa is going to be a really mixed bag, because I think a lot of them are released felons who have been recruited into a cause. Yeah. They will throw you a few breadcrumbs if you do what you say. As far as like Chaz and Chop, I think a lot of people in Chaz, I think heroin is a huge thing in Seattle. I think what you got was a lot of heroin users who just thought, okay, we'll be here, the police won't be here. I think that was a big draw for it. I don't think those heroin addicts were especially ideological. They just wanted to be in a police-free zone. So I think it's a real mixed bag.
Well, it was kind of funny. If you're talking about that incident in Seattle, I couldn't believe that the mayor of that city just literally ceded like 6 or 8 blocks of territory to those anarcho-communists. I mean, I didn't think that the American government would do much for the middle Americans and the suburbanites, but I at least thought that the American government and the American system would stand up for itself. Yeah, and it didn't even do that.
Well, it's sending a message to business owners in downtown areas that we don't really care about you at all. Yes.
Right. You're destroying all the businesses. So who do we get who makes all the money? Amazon, all these big companies. Yep. That's what communism does, is it took away all the farms from the farmers. They were in control. They controlled the ways and means of production. The government. This is what you do. This is exactly what you do.
Yeah.
It's so obvious that they're turning communist, and these I'm sure these politicians are getting money from these, but this time it's the billionaires and trillionaires. Yeah. It's a big uber wealthy companies.
Well, it's woke capitalism. That's the problem.
it's no longer capital, because you're making everyone poor and you're decreasing the population. That's why
right. I like capitalism, but I also acknowledge that what we're facing here is this technocratic woke capitalism.
Yes,
I think it's more communist than capitalism, though I disagree with you. Never. This time I'll say this is a new type of communism. What they're doing.
I think it's still more kind of like a dominant party system, like in not so much like Soviet style one party state, but more kind of. I think I mentioned this like dozens of times before. It's more kind of like India, how India was ruled during the era of the Indian National Congress, or Mexico during the PRI regime there.
Yeah, well, when any corporation gets to the size of Amazon, it has to strike a few deals with the government. So you can't claim it's pure free market, because there is, at that level, there has to be some commingling of the corporate and the governmental. And so
it's kind of like economic fascism, but without the social conservatism that Mussolini advocated for.
Yeah, but we get all the racial aspects, but it's kind of like the purpose of BLM is not to elevate black people. It's to basically turn the plebes against each other. So to elevate,
kill each other off. They want civil war. They want us to kill each other off, and because they don't have to get their hands dirty. They don't have to do the killing. It saves on all the bullets. And then they'll just throw some gasoline on us and light a fire and burn us in the middle of our towns, and then with a bulldozer.
Well, I was doing research on the Derg regime in Ethiopia during the Marxist regime that lasted there. And that regime was pretty interesting, because the way the Kui Shibur, which was the Ethiopian Red Terror, the way that played out was that you had rival Marxist factions that were literally competing with one another on who could kill more people. So it's very different from, say, in the Soviet Union, where you had a organized security service like the NKVD or the Cheka or the KGB that did the mass killings.
I know we've got a president. We got this one man standing in between our total annihilation, prosperity, and total annihilation.
Yes.
And we could. There wouldn't be. There wasn't any Every politician is corrupt. He wasn't a politician. He's a New Yorker and he's tough, and no matter how they punch him and how they beat him and how many lies they tell, and they try to take him down. It's like, what's that superhero? You hit him and he becomes stronger, and he gets stronger and stronger, and the more you throw things at him, the more you blow him up.
The flip side of that is that Trump goes to rallies and he sees how much ordinary Americans love him. That's the flip side of that.
Because we know he's on our side. He knows he wants us all to be prosperous, and he loves the American dream for everyone.
Does anyone else sense that the stock of the journalistic class is really taking a dive over these last few weeks?
Yeah, but at the same time, I have a problem with that, because at the same time they are able to maintain many of their contradictory narratives.
Well, they're getting we know through WikiLeaks that they were, and God help Julian Assange, because of the things that we found out because of WikiLeaks. Will really help sink Hillary's campaign. But one thing we did find out was that the journalists were sending her the stories. And
they were in cahoots with the Clinton campaign.
Yeah, and would rewrite the stories. So that's
why I say this is kind of similar to PRA Mexico or India during the INC regime, because during those countries, when they ruled, or when those regimes ruled, the media wasn't so much under the control of the state, like in the Soviet Union or Mao's China. In the USSR, you had the Pravda, which was under the direct control of the Communist Party. But in India and in PRA Mexico, you had media conglomerates that were aligned with the ruling regimes.
So, yeah.
It may not seem much of a difference, but it really is.
Because they think it's a different station that they're hearing investigative reporting. They're telling the truth. We're brainwashed, thinking that if you open up a newspaper, if it's in the newspaper, it's got
somehow rioting and looting is justified in a rational response to racial injustice. But at the same time, it's also white supremacists actually doing the rioting or marching under Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
Yeah, take the mask off. You kind of wonder. You want to see some of the faces that's behind.
I could not believe they actually. Oh, go ahead.
I'm confused now, because if the race riots are actually white supremacists in disguise, are they
poking and prodding people to?
Because I thought that when conservatives get together, it actually spreads COVID, but when leftists get together, it actually.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I forget that.
Well, then they're saying that the white supremacists actually are preventing COVID. Like, see, they can't maintain their narratives straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So in the past few weeks, we had Trump called veterans losers. That was the big story. I don't think Americans are buying this. I don't think.
It did. I played you that little piece that it came out in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Goldberg, the editor, came out and said that. I don't think that's true. He retracted. They admitted that it wasn't true. I mean, that one doesn't sell. They're going to look for one that does sell. They're going to try.
Then you have COVID gate, and no one cares about that. Then now you have cuties. And they were telling us it's not that bad. People are finding out it's bad. And they're going on the defensive. They're going to bat for cuties. Now, next week, it's going to be John Brennan. He's going to take out his book, and we're going to be subject to that. I don't think anyone cares about any of this.
Well, the Durham, they say the Durham, it's coming out now that Durham has quit. It's done. Nothing's going to happen with the Durham investigation. If that's true, and that's not just gossip, but I heard that today, that he quit. Hopefully it's gossip, but it looks like, you see how close to the election this is? Mm-hmm. There's no indictments. There were supposed to be indictments. They let out in the spring. They said that indictments were forthcoming.
Well,
nothing is going to happen, because in the schools, they say, we'll open. All these places say we're open. The schools have to stay closed until after the election. They're all waiting. It's just all waiting till this is all about the election. So that means it's not. Also, the disease is all of a sudden going to go away after the mail-in ballots are counted or not counted.
That's what Sticks Hexenhammer 666 argued, that if Biden were to get in, you'd probably see coronavirus magically disappear.
Yes. Yeah, that's what they're planning on doing. But I think it was a few years ago, the Democrats came out officially and said you can't do mail-in voting because there's too much room for fraud. They admitted this like 3 or 4 years ago, and now this is their last-ditch effort, because the ballots will just keep coming in, just like in California. They just keep manufacturing new ballots until Hillary got 3. All of a sudden she got 3 million votes. They're going to keep doing that, and then by January 20th, if it's not certified, Nancy Pelosi becomes the president. That's what's going to happen.
The problem too with that is
what? Go ahead.
Yeah, the problem with that too is that even then she's like really old and doesn't even know where she is.
I know, but they don't care.
So it's gonna be like with Biden, where Kamala Harris.
But they're mouthpieces for the Democrat Party, who whatever they want, they're mouthpieces for it. And the Democrat Party wants slavery. They want slavery. Otherwise, they'd shut the border.
Yeah.
And it's keeping people in prison for free labor. Or they were going to make slaves out of us. They import lots of people. It's not just human trafficking and sex slavery, but just people coming in that will work as cheap labor. That's what they want. They're the party of slavery. They're still the party. Everything that they were, they still are. They never changed. They never let up. And especially that we know that they're funding. They're bailing out these rioters. They're funding this. I mean, it's like, it's. We used to say, people used to throw names back and forth, Republican, Democrat, calling each other evil. And they call the Republicans evil, and Republicans say the Democrats are evil. But it really turns out that the Democrats it's not just name calling. They actually are evil. They're evil to the core. I mean, they say Satanists are bad. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
these are the true demons and devils that they.
When you got a TV show like Cuties, which is actually now being defended by the progressive left, it really makes you wonder.
Anything that the Trump supporters say, wait, this is not right. Clearly, it's not right. Anything we say, if we said that it was great, why don't we just say it's great? Then they'll stop. Then they'll say that we're evil. Well, that's true. You have every right to say we're evil if we say that's right. But it's whatever. If Trump said everybody has to stay in their homes, never because of COVID, everybody has to wear masks. You have to lock down your businesses. They would say open everything the opposite. That's all he has to do is say he has to be like George, and your savior is the Antichrist. Remember everything was just say the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like, but obviously, if he did, he would not get my vote, because if he implemented what they want, I would find it hard to vote for him.
Did you see after Trump got nominated now for 2 Nobel Peace?
And yes, the second one.
Really? I heard about the first one. Yeah.
I can't believe they're nominating him. Because they gave it to Gore and they gave it to Obama when he got elected, before he did anything, because he had more melanin.
That's true.
But he was not an African American. He did not have the experience, descended of slaves.
But
that was it. You know, even Martin Luther King had to do something.
Yes.
With the Nobel Prize. He went to college. He got a doctorate.
Well, you know what's so shitty?
What's that?
You know what's so shitty was that when Trump was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, you had woke Twitter saying that, well, so was Hitler. Hitler was also nominated. So you're basically saying that anyone who was nominated is like Hitler.
Well, they gave it.
No, but this is what's hilarious. This is what's hilarious is that after Trump got nominated for 2 Nobel Peace Prizes, The Atlantic, which is the one that ran that horrible Trump calls veterans losers, the Atlantic then ran an op-ed that says why the Nobel Peace Prize should be discontinued.
I said that after Obama, Gore, and then Obama. Gore, after everything in his little book, his movie, everything turned out to be not true.
Yes,
we got quadrupled in 2012. The polar bear population quadrupled.
He said 2015.
Siberia are being eaten. The Inuits are being eaten because there's so many polar bears, and they can swim like up to 2,000 miles. They're the ice flow. They're on the ice flow. They can swim. It's like, that's how ignorant we are of everything, that somebody can look at us and say, well, yeah, the poor polar bear is going to drown. And there he is eating all these seals and humans. And, it's like, but they're so cute. And we don't know enough about the world. We really don't know enough about how things work. That's why they can pull one over on us. The snows of Mount Kilimanjaro, well, it's because they deforested, and all the snow, there's nothing to hold the snow onto it.
It's going to be hilarious after the election when COVID is magically not an issue anymore, and the people who
only if Biden is elected.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, well, at some point it's going to be a non-issue, but it's going to be hilarious when the people who said the scientist who said, having people congregating in the streets might spread COVID, but white privilege is the real virus. And
don't go to church, but you can ride in the streets.
And they said BLM riots prevent the spread of COVID. It's going to
because of the inferno. It's a blazing infernos and kills COVID.
Yeah, it's going to be hilarious when those people a few months from now are going to go back to saying the world is going to end in 9 months. No one's going to believe you.
They have the vaccine. They've got it on. The Fauci came out today, and a bunch of others came out today, saying that we have to hunker down. We have to get ready because the flu season is coming, and COVID is going to get worse. Fauci is already pulling it already.
Well, they keep moving these dates further and further back. It's ridiculous.
Well, we're day 180 of 15 days to slow the spread. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
Well, maybe they count 15 differently. 15 means something else.
It's like the Bible, where every
15,000, but it's shortened. Oh yeah, that's right. 7 days, but it's more than 7. They said 7 days, but it really took billions of years, really.
Probably 7 days in God's years, or days.
Yeah,
7 days
in God's years. Yeah, there was a night and a day, and the last day, the 7th day, there was no night. There was no end to that day, and they say, apologists say that technically we're in the 7th. We're still in the 7th day. It hasn't been completed yet. because it never said there was a night and then the next morning.
Did you hear that rioters in Kenosha they torched the dinosaur statue? Yeah.
Might as well. There's nothing else to torch.
Peak idiocracy. Well, it's like in Portland, they torched the elk statue there.
Yeah, I heard about that.
They just have to set something. Like, look, if you're not going to go to jail for setting things on fire, you might as well just keep setting things on fire.
Well, like you said, they're running out of things to torch. I mean,
and that's why Obama and Zuckerberg live on islands. You know, they got the Martha's Vineyard. You know, he bought the house on Martha's Vineyard and Hawaii. But he's got 5 houses. Obama's got 5 houses. But he must have lowered the ocean. So, you know, that way he can live on these islands. Because he said he was going to oceans were going to lower if he's elected president. So he must have done it. So since he did that already, we don't have to worry about climate change. Because he did it. He's living on 2 islands. A $15 million, I know Martha's Vineyard was $15 million. I'm going to assume, he moved into Who's It's house. Who's It's, the guy, very handsome, Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck was, what's the show he had in the 80s?
Magnum PI.
Magnum PI, the house that you see in, I never watched one episode of Magnum PI. Oh, this guy's really handsome. I don't know.
It was
I don't know.
Why?
And so that's where Obama moved into that house. And of course, Zuckerberg was it Kauai? He tried to sue everyone on Kauai to get them so he can have the island to himself. I think
he also destroyed a habitat there, an environmental habitat that was preserved. He also destroyed a preservation there.
Oh, he did. Oh, yeah. They're Democrats, right? They're the ones for the environment. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you
have to remind me of these things.
That's what the Edge of U2 bought a little cul-de-sac in Malibu that was a little animal sanctuary because it had rare species. But
I heard that.
He bought the environmental department because he wanted to build some mansions there. Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't hear that. These hypocrites. They're all hypocrites. Oh my God. Wake up, people. But these are the people that are paying these people to riot. That's the thing. And the one who did the study in October of 2019 with John Hopkins about the pandemic that was going to spread all over the world. Mm-hmm. If that happens in October of 2019, that foundation, the people who own it have lots and lots of money and have stated that they want the population to drop to 500 million. Because we're breathing all their air and we're taking all their resources and their coastlines, and there's just too many of us. You know what I mean? They just want to make the gold chairs and the gold plates.
Yeah.
And cook their food.
If you want to see something freaky, look up Madonna's performance at the 2019 Eurovision Song Contest.
Was that the one she comes off the crucifix?
She might have done that in one of the songs, but I didn't watch the whole thing. But the songs, she does a little set piece.
She's like a Disney horror writer self with all the plastic surgery she's had. Look at it.
She's freaky.
Look away. Look away. And then when they got up on the Women's March and started talking about their periods.
That was when she said, I've often thought about blowing up the White House. I was like, let's at least let her try. I don't want to see Madonna because she would probably just end up blowing herself up.
Yeah.
Look, Madonna, just have we want to try to do this.
But she'd pay someone, though. I mean, no, I'm so angry. I'll pay you $10 million to push that lever, that TNT, like Wile E. Coyote. Keep trying to blow up the Roadrunner. You push that. I'll give you $15 million. I'm not going to ruin my nails.
Okay, so that's a good segue. Speaking about terrorism, what do you think about the siege on the White House?
I've heard that. Yeah, the leftists, they want to put like a 50-day siege or something like that.
Yeah.
A siege of the White House?
Yeah, well, you know how they were rioting in front of the White House.
Yeah, and they tried to put him in a bunker.
Yeah, well, they want to do that for 50 days, up until the election.
Well, that's when the Insurrection Act. He okays the Insurrection Act. That's all he has to do. And the National Guard and the military goes out and then quashes all of this and brings peace to the nation. He has to invoke the Insurrection Act.
Well,
but the problem is they're baiting him into acting like a third or second world dictator.
But look, the country's burning up. They're crazy. They're crazy. They need to be put in a very small room that's locked with no matches. Don't give them any matches. Wait a minute. Lock the room. Yes, give them the matches. Sorry. It's like, yeah, you have to invoke the Insurrection Act because they're crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, this because they're burning small businesses down. They're terrorizing people, innocent people. We have to be strong, because if we're not strong, there's nobody that's going to help us. And if we can get near each other, we can help each other. But they told us we can't even get near each other to help each other. How can we even help our fellow man if we can't even get near our fellow man?
Well, what I found very interesting about the ad busters, I guess they had a flyer for this 50-day siege, is that they say that they're doing it for the New World Order. They actually put it right out there.
Oh,
Robert, your video is going in and out. We can't.
My video?
Hi, can you hear me?
Robert?
Yeah, I'm here. I just got some Chinese food, so.
Oh, you're not going to show us the Chinese food. I wish I could have Chinese food so bad. I am so hungry. I didn't eat dinner. I had a carcass of a chicken that had no meat on it that I boiled today, and then I added too much salt.
Plugged it herself.
I am so hungry.
Herself, feather by feather.
Oh my God. Oh.
What, do you guys want to hear the bag wrapping?
Do we want to hear bad rapping?
What kind of Chinese?
No, the bag wrapping, like.
Oh, okay.
Navy Mom and Amy, I answered what you were talking about.
I thought you were going to start rapping.
Oh, God.
Just kidding.
I am so hungry. I had a quarter can of cream mushroom soup last night. It's really pathetic. I'm losing weight.
I imagine you are.
And I started the other week. I started to do ballet. I started to ballet. I used to belong to that when I was a little girl, and I started to do my, doing the whole, like the Swan Lake arms kind of thing. And it's like, and I go, my God, I can do. Oh yes, you lift your body. All of a sudden, when you lift your body up, and you lift all the muscles in your upper body up, and it's like you all of a sudden, oh my God, there's my figure. There's my figure. The answer is just lift the body up and just lift the muscles up. And then if you hold them in that position, then you're toning all the muscles beneath. And so all the if there is any fat or bloat, that just eventually kind of gets smoothed out and goes away, but you got to tone the muscles underneath. And I go, oh, I look good. It's because we're crouching down more and more and more. And you go, oh God, I look awful. Sit up, your arms back. Oh, all right, there you go. And it's just like, you know, I don't realize that, you know, being alone for so long, that it's like we're really being afraid. Am I going to survive? You know, the money that's, you know, that I can't pay my father's facility because I can't take care of him. I can't lift him. You know, I'm like afraid, and I'm alone. And so it's like you start to hold yourself differently. You're not, it's, you know, all these little things that we forget to do because we don't know if tomorrow we're going to survive. You know, just the simple ways of survival. And it's like, it's more than just, isn't like, oh, well, there'll be a shop that'll be the down, go get a job down. Well, they're burning everything down. It's like,
you know, and that's the thing. The rioting and looting makes it harder for people to get a job.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's even more than just, you know.